I love a good layering piece, and I've been looking for a while now for a sort of lace skirt that I can use over like pants or jeans. I think it just adds a nice extra detail or like kind of accessorizes an otherwise pretty simple outfit. I have these small bits of lace that don't exactly make up a full-size skirt or a full-size piece of fabric, and they're also all different kinds of lace as well. But my plan is to patchwork something together that I can make up for a piece of fabric for my skirt that I'm going to be making today. Working with lace has seemed a little bit intimidating to me just because it looks a bit hard to sew together, but I am a sort of learn as you go kind of sewist, so I want to give it a try. To patchwork this together, I think the best method to sew with lace is to do French seams, especially because the inside of the skirt is going to be visible from the outside. So just to keep all the seams nice and neat, this is, I think, the best way to go about it. So I do this by layering 2 pieces of fabric wrong sides together and sewing along the edge with a 1.5 centimeter seam allowance. Next, I snip away most of the seam allowance till I'm left with about 0.3 centimeters of seam allowance. Then I put the fabric right sides together, give it a good press, pin down the sides together, and then sew with a 0.5 centimeter seam allowance, enclosing the raw edge. And I follow the same process for my other back piece as well. So lace is definitely a bit tricky to work with, and I would recommend going nice and slow as it is a little, finicky, a little slippery. I have these smaller pieces of lace as well that I'm just going to patchwork together to make up one long piece of fabric to match the length of my skirt as well. So I'm just cutting up some pieces where I'm following the same French seam method as well. I was actually really excited to work with the fabric this way because I didn't want just a basic lace skirt. I wanted to make something that, felt like it had a bit extra detail to it. And I just love working with patchwork. I think it gives such a nice original touch to a garment. So after I finished my back and front, I also gave a bit of top stitching to all of my seams to make sure that they sit nice and flush up against the fabric. I'm also, by the way, not following any pattern for this piece. I'm kind of just doing it on the fly. I did purposefully make my back piece a little bit wider than my front just to sort of make up for the shape of my body. And then I could attach front and back together, making sure to give a good press and top stitch everything down. As I said, I don't just want to make a basic lace skirt, so I decided to add a little bit extra detail to it. And I'm kind of taking a page out of the Miu Miu Prada playbook and adding like a bit of mix of like a sporty feminine details to the skirt. So I decided to add a gray elastic waistband to the top of the skirt. But before I could do that, I felt like I needed to stabilize the top of the skirt a little bit more. So I decided to add a bit of bias binding to the top of the skirt that I could then attach the waistband to in a more secure way. I then cut up some gray jersey knit fabric to the size of my skirt waist. Marked some buttonholes for the waist ties to go through. I started by sewing the buttonholes together first, then sewed the whole piece right sides together. Next, I folded the elastic in half and gave it a good press, and then attached only the right side of the fabric to the right side of the top of the skirt so that I could later do a stitch in the ditch. So I pinned down, sewed it into place, attaching it to the bias binding that I had attached earlier. Then I could fold in 1 centimeter on the wrong side of the waistband and to do a stitch in the ditch from the right side of the skirt. So I was kind of trying to catch both the underside of the waistband as well as a bit of the top of the right side of the waistband so that it would sit nice and flush. I left an opening in the waistband and then could feed my elastic through as well. You might be wondering why I'm feeding elastic through this already, stretchy piece of fabric. And to be honest, I'm not sure that this is exactly the right way to do it. My fear was just that, if I cut out the elastic waistband to the size of my waist, I would somehow have to gather up the skirt, maybe through like doing a basting stitch and then gathering it together. But then that wouldn't fit over, the widest parts of my butt and my hips. So I felt like this was the best way to get around that. I mean, I'm not sure that this is the right way to do it, so let me know if I could have just gone ahead and used the elasticated waistband. But yeah, I decided to add an extra piece of elastic into the waistband. I then closed up the elastic and then the rest of the opening of the waistband. I then gave the waistband some top stitching to hold the elastic in place while I'm making sure to really hold the elastic taut while I'm sewing it. Next, I cut out a long strip of fabric for the ties of the same piece of knit fabric that I had. To be honest, I don't think that these are the sturdiest ties, as I'm sewing with a straight stitch on elasticated fabric. I don't think this is the best way to do it, but these are supposed to be more decorative, more than I'm gonna be pulling too much on them. After I added in the ties to my skirt, I just gave them a little knot at the end, and then the skirt is basically done. Okay, so a few things about this skirt. I really like the patchworking details. I think that makes it super cute, like you can see here on the side. On the back as well, like it's not completely symmetrical, but it's not supposed to be. A few things about the waistband. I think it looks good overall, but it is kind of bunching some places in like a weird way. And I thought top stitching it would help with the bunching, but I don't know if it's because the bias binding it's kind of stiff, so I think that might be causing that. I still think it looks pretty good. Like I still really like the detail of the waistband. Although I'm gonna probably be wearing a lot of sweaters over. It won't even be super noticeable or visible, but I still really like it. I actually really love that I added this extra detail of the elasticated waistband. I think it's such a fun mix of materials and styles as well, which I really love. I hope you enjoyed watching, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!